We're at COP28. That means there have been 27 previous climate conferences. And this is really the first time that world leaders are coming together to focus on food, to focus on adaptation, to focus on the issues facing small farmers. Why do you think it's taken so long?
Well, I think a lot of people hoped that the mitigation could go fast enough that we wouldn't have to think about adaptation. And adaptation is more complex. In a mitigation, you see the tons emitted and you see, okay, what's the cost to get rid of those tons? And, we know the areas of emissions and we need innovations in every one of those. For adaptation, it's forest fires, it's flooding, but overwhelmingly the outdoor activity that's most affected is farming, because most people don't realize the poorest in the world are subsistence farmers.
And you talk about adaptation, there's this interesting argument to be made, isn't there, that, oh, well, if you're adapting to climate change, you're throwing in the towel. You're saying that, well, hey, this is going to happen. There's not much we can do about it. Let's prepare for the climate of the future. Where do you come down on that argument?
Well, I'm, putting billions into accelerating the mitigation efforts. We need more innovation. We need to go faster on that. But even the best case will still involve enough warming. We're already seeing the old seeds failing. And, that's tragic, because the people we're talking about had no role in the carbon's emissions. Africa's like 3% of overall emissions. And yet, that's where the negative impacts will be the greatest.
I want to ask you just in general about innovation. It's so much of what you do. When it comes to climate change, is there a danger of relying too much on innovation, looking at and hoping for technologies to come online in 5 years, a decade, 2 decades? Does that mean we lose sight of what we need to get done right now?
Well, certain technologies like wind and solar, we should be deploying those even faster. We've got to improve the grids, we have to figure out the reliability, and so we need to go full speed ahead on that. Just because the next generation or something else will come along shouldn't relieve us of full speed deployment, including things like electric cars that, at least at the high end of the range, aren't hugely more expensive. For the person who parks on the street, okay, we're still not there, but time is definitely on our side in that one. So implementation of what we have today, full speed, in many areas like steel and cement, we don't have an economic solution. And just raising the price of everything at a time when people are experiencing inflation, if we're not smart about that, we're going to get a lot of pushback. We're seeing that a little bit in political debate. So how do you square the need to go fast and the limit on what people are willing to spend? And that's where innovation comes in.
I know you're not a politician, at least not yet. Do you think, though, about politics, and you mentioned it, we're often, it seems, one election away from the climate agenda of a country doing a 180. Does that worry you?
Certainly, I wish that parties would compete on how to solve climate, not on, whether it's a priority or not.
But climate change is political in a lot of countries.
It's becoming political, and because many of these investments are like 20 and 30-year investments, if you really get the idea that, okay, 50% of the time we don't care, that really would hurt the climate movement. And so communicating about the challenge, communicating about the people who are suffering, just like we do with malaria and TB and vaccines, bringing it home to people that generosity in this area, whether it's the R&D or mitigation or adaptation, that's incumbent upon us. We care about other humans, and we need to hear about the impacts that we're having on them.
You've contributed billions of dollars to climate innovations, but a new study shows the world's richest 1% account for more carbon emissions than the poorest 66%. What responsibility do you think the super rich have to act in a sustainable way as we see so many of these climate impacts falling on the backs of the world's poor?
Yeah, so, I spend about $9 million a year, so I'm buying sustainable aviation fuel and to cancel out my footprint. I wouldn't claim in any way, that means I can leave the problem alone, because I should use my skills and money to drive innovation, so that this problem doesn't just get solved for my emissions, it gets solved for everyone's emissions. I hope more people with wealth get involved in this, just like, I hope they get involved in philanthropy in general and global health. I do think those who are the luckiest, and I'm certainly in that group, we owe a lot to the society that created that framework, and we should have a long-term view of how we make a contribution.
The situation right now, we're hearing headlines, we're hearing from the UN Secretary General that it's getting dire, that we're running out of time, we're running out of carbon that we can put into the atmosphere. You recently said, though, there's more reason to be optimistic than people realize.
Well, the human condition, continues to improve. The headlines, of course, accurately talk about things that are going wrong, but, we now have half as many children dying every year. It was over 10 million at the turn of the century. Now it's down below 5 million. And so we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that as we meet these challenges, we did create Gavi to buy vaccines. We did create Global Fund to buy bed nets to reduce malaria deaths. And so we should be doing more. The idea of helping the poor countries, reducing inequity, I'm always impatient that we're not doing enough there. But people shouldn't lose sight of the fact that in the climate area and in the health area, the human condition can continue to improve.
What's the biggest thing that gives you hope right now that we can do this, that we can keep global warming to around 1.5 degrees Celsius?
Well, 1.5 is not likely to be achieved, but
I don't think so.
No. The reduction you need for that is quite dramatic. But, the extreme scenarios like 4 degrees, fortunately, because of the changes, that's off the table. And so, wherever we end up, the less warming, the better. And, scaling these things up, it's replacing most of our physical economy. So I've often said this is one of the hardest things we'll ever do. The rich countries have to lead by example and get their emissions down quickly. And, with innovation, that becomes possible.
Bill Gates, thank you for giving us up some hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.